I have been doing integration, everything API focus, iPaaS tooling focus for the last 12 years now, I think. Naturally, I'm having a lot of conversations with people across the board, high level executives, partners, all the high level firms, CTOs, CEOs, tier 1, tier 2s, tier 3s, and obviously the end users as well. So I guess this presentation is kind of like putting together what I'm hearing, what the discussions are, whether you guys are looking or not looking. I think it's good to just kind of keep tabs on what's kind of going on in the market. Because I guess from my point of view, you guys are the technical people. I'm the kind of eyes and ears on the ground in terms of, what managers are saying, what I'm hearing, what I think the focus will be, what the market is kind of speaking to me about. So I think it'll be pretty valuable for you guys. But I guess to set the tone of this, integration's in a good spot right now. There is a lot of activity going on, and I really don't see that changing at the moment. A lot of this is going to be around like AI, which is probably no surprise to you guys. But AI shouldn't be seen as a threat. It's just an opportunity to adapt, and API and AI, as you guys probably know as well, they are really kind of interwoven at the moment, which is really exciting. But it's just making sure that you're kind of aware of that and you can lean on that just to make sure that you're up to date, current, and I guess kind of appealing in the market to help your careers and whatever you want to do. So, I mean, just quickly, like there's obviously been quite a few announcements with like Boomi, Azure Integration, MuleSoft, not necessarily in the last quarter, but like probably in the last 12 months, right? So like Boomi's trying to become like the operating system for enterprise AI rather than just like an integration platform, I guess. So that's only one component of the broader AI. MuleSoft's announcement more on enterprise AI governance rather than simply just like generating APIs faster. So all these kind of AI concepts are intertwined in it. So we're not connecting Salesforce to SAP anymore. It's how do we govern every AI interaction around the enterprise systems, Microsoft Azure as well. Announcements are centered more around like the backbone of agentic AI and things like that. So AI is really kind of like nudging its way into everything. But I guess like at a higher level, I'll go into kind of more the nuances kind of going down in terms of the platform and what I'm seeing and things like that. But like a high level kind of snapshot in terms of if I was to just summarize everything, just so you got some context as to what it's looking like at the moment. I'm noticing, now there's probably more, but this is just the discussions I'm having. You might have a different view, but this is just the discussions I'm having. Obviously, I don't speak to every single person in the market. I have relationships with, a number of people, but this is kind of what I'm hearing at the moment. So I'm not really seeing full blown like implementations happening. Obviously there are like pockets of them. But I guess it's kind of more organizations kind of like improving their existing platforms. How do they get the most out of it? So look, there are pockets here and there, but I think the kind of high level implementation boom, especially with like MuleSoft, like it's an interesting one at the moment. So, how do we leverage that? How do we make it AI ready, basically? Then I've highlighted in green as well. So this is quite an interesting one. Companies are working on like I'll do the Q&A at the end, guys, because I know there's probably quite a lot that you want to fire in. And obviously I know there's a lot of people on this as well. So if you just want to fire in the messages at the end, then we can have a chat based on that, if that's all right. But a lot of companies as well are doing more sort of like multi-platform. So instead of just having pure MuleSoft, pure Azure, pure Boomi, a lot of companies are kind of operating more on like a hybrid model. A big one that I'm seeing at the moment is MuleSoft, for example. So MuleSoft is, if it's so embedded in an organization, to rip it out and do everything again is going to be timely, costly. It's going to be a pretty kind of hefty like ordeal, and an expensive one is probably the key component here. So a lot of people are kind of building APIs on existing platforms. So like building like Azure on top of MuleSoft for like new APIs. I'm seeing that a lot at the moment. So not like your complete overhauls, just more working them simultaneously, because especially with MuleSoft guys, it is a cost. And I think, they kind of want to leverage, existing like newer APIs in a more kind of like cheaper way. I know Azure has its costs, but, it's not at the same level as MuleSoft. More kind of next point, more operational ownership, like monitoring and governance is valued alongside delivery as well. Now with the AI side of things, everyone knows, and we should all know this now, so many companies kind of ran into the AI train early doors instead of kind of zooming out and looking at the API landscape. How does it look? And will AI function against that? So a lot of the companies I'm seeing who kind of ran into the AI train too early are now kind of backtracking, because your AI is only as good as your API landscape. So AI is basically fixed on, data talking to each other, how it all interconnects. If your API landscape isn't rock solid, then the AI is just not going to function properly. And that's why I'm saying us integration guys, like, we're in a good spot right now, because people who didn't realize that are now realizing it, and now they're fixing it. So we're seeing this kind of uptake in integration, because now they know, that it's such an important feature, right? Like you have to get the API landscape governance just like rock solid. So like I said, this is kind of a snapshot. So in terms of like AI is kind of changing the requirements. So last kind of few months, guys, like the integration hiring has been pretty steady, like rather than like booming. You had that kind of pretty heavy kind of implementation phase like a year or two ago, but with the kind of AI now, organizations are hiring a lot more selectively, a lot stronger focus on like modernization, moving from AI pilots to production, working with clean APIs. So, it's increasing the importance of integration rather than just like replacing it. So like we're in a good spot, in short, whether, you're operating in Boomi, MuleSoft, Azure Integration, like across the board, like, you are in a kind of a good stead right now. And following all the announcements as well, that recognizing that AI projects depend on well-governed like APIs. This next point is a big one. I get this all the time. Do I just stay on one platform? Now, I guess there's no real easy way to answer this, but I posted something a while ago in terms of like transferable skills, and I can share this with you guys on an email afterwards. I suppose MuleSoft's probably the only one that I would say that you would need to kind of upskill in another area, because a lot of my clients at the moment, where they're doing like a migration off MuleSoft to Azure or building new APIs for Azure, like, you kind of want that dual offering. It just makes you kind of more appealing from an integration like specialist point of view. So like candidates with Azure and MuleSoft, Azure Boomi API management, MuleSoft and Kafka is a big one. Integration and DevOps is another big one. People who can do like CI/CD pipelines, as well as those kind of classic like APIs as well, whether that's kind of, full stack web service integration, or whether you're operating on like an iPaaS tooling system as well. Like I can send this list to you, but that would be the pairing that I'm seeing at the moment. I'm sure you guys are kind of seeing it as well, especially if you are from like a consulting background. The clients that I'm dealing with at the moment, they rarely just hire like, we need an integration engineer who does like Azure, Boomi, Workato, or MuleSoft, because they have multiple offerings. They like to be able to have the flexibility to be able to turn people into different different tools. It's relatively easy to do if you kind of understand the modern API principles, the modern day concepts. You can kind of plug it in. I guess where it comes into your certifications and things like that, consultancies do like to see that all the time. Whether I agree or disagree with that is not a thing. I think that's more of like a safety net if they're on site with the end users, and if it doesn't work out, they can be like, well, why isn't this person certified? that's really the only reason why they do it, is a safety net. If something happens, then that's going to be the first thing go to. Like, why isn't it recognized, in Logic apps, or, MuleSoft architect, like, it was an architect role, MuleSoft. So, so they do get a bit funny about that. But it's not too bad. So I guess this is more kind of just on the last quarter. Probably not anything overly exciting here, but like market focus is more on, I mentioned, like the platform optimization, API delivery, more operational support, remain the kind of more dominant like themes that I'm seeing. MuleSoft did hold strong. Places like your governments, where it's really heavily embedded, they're always going to have that. Like I said, there's not really more implementation. It's more about optimization, upgrades, BAU work, which I know isn't overly exciting, but just the size of the platform, especially with government, things like that, they need that. You guys have probably hit up a lot, your muleys anyway, with government probably every other day. Obviously, the NV1 clearance is probably the big one. So if you are an Australian citizen, I would suggest you get NV1 clearance, because that just opens you up and makes you a lot more kind of appealing on the market. But I know obviously you need to be a citizen and it does cost money. But that's something worth considering as well. Azure integration remained the more popular one. People who are kind of operating on the .NET stack, Microsoft stack already, it does make sense just to have one vendor that you can just go to with all your, I guess, kind of technical landscape needs. So a lot of companies are kind of doing that at the moment. But I think takeaways from this slide, I guess, probably more it's optimization, upgrades, BAU, than full implementation. Another point there as well. So I think this is on the other slide as well. Platform demands is broadening. So look, I know there are so many integration tools. These are the ones that I focus on, guys. So if you ask me about Informatica, or I'd still do Spring Boot and stuff like that, but these are the kind of main ones that I'm focusing on: MuleSoft, Boomi, Azure Integration, and like Workato. Like, those are the big ones, right? So if I was to rank these, it's close between Azure and Boomi, to be honest. Azure Integration, it probably the strongest demand at the moment, particularly kind of across more of the enterprise organizations. A lot of the job adverts that I've seen or had briefings on, are covering like your Azure Logic apps, API management service bus, Azure functions, event-driven architecture, that sort of thing. So there's been quite a big increase in that, especially on the lead integration engineer as well, and integration architects. Now, when people start hiring leads and architects like that, it's always a good sign that projects are kicking off. Start with the design, work your way down to the engineers. That's the classic model that they do. So that's why I'm thinking the Azure is probably going to be like a continual kind of increase, especially if you've got people at that kind of design layer, which is kind of your classic builds. But in terms of like the sectors, utilities, healthcare, what else we got? Government, obviously, and then financial services. Like, they're always going to be the big ones. So like, rather than like just designing APIs, they're looking at the architects who can, define the integration, strategy, governance, API fundamentals, concepts, that sort of thing. In terms of close seconds, Boomi. Like, Boomi has come out the ranks pretty heavily. Especially people from like your web methods, your web spheres, your kind of, I guess IBM stacks, relatively easy to kind of turn your hand on that. You got your Tibcos into MuleSoft, then you got your web methods, web spheres into your Boomi. So it's kind of like been a nice natural transition for people over the years to kind of step into those silos. But it's pretty constant, more in the mid-market. There are obviously pockets going on in the enterprise side of things. I know a lot of kind of the financial institutions. You only needed to go to the Boomi conference and you were probably seeing some big faces in there, like like Yarra Valley, Toyota, People's First Bank, like all these guys are playing around with it at the moment, which is pretty exciting. So I don't know if anyone knows anyone in there, might be worth scoping out. I know that's probably my job, but there's a fair bit going on with those guys right now. It does perform well across organizations, just faster delivery, isn't it? Leaner integration teams. Like you don't need a huge engineering team with Boomi engineers. Like it is classified as I guess a relatively easier platform to deal with. But Boomi is definitely a big one. In terms of like the demand with Boomi, Atmosphere, API development, ERP, CRM integrations, cloud migration projects, that sort of thing. So pretty kind of standards. They only really typically hire like 1 or 2 engineers who can own the delivery end to end. That's the preference. That's kind of across the board in general. But I guess more so in the Boomi side of things is what I'm seeing, guys. I guess following Workato, I don't know if anyone's played around with Workato. This is kind of new to me, this area, and I'm kind of enjoying it, but like it's still relatively niche, like in Australia. Demand is growing in organizations on like your traditional kind of systems, with the AI enabled workflows and that sort of thing. But it's they're often like hidden in other job adverts. Very rarely will you'd always see like an Azure integration engineer or a Boomi engineer or a MuleSoft engineer, like architects and whatnot. But Workato, very rarely do you see like a Workato engineer. Yes, they pop up every now and again, but I just don't know how your full job could just be in Workato. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's hidden in like business automation specialists, AI operations, automation engineers, enterprise application engineers, that sort of thing. So they're kind of hidden, basically. But a lot of that's with SaaS, financial services, basically anything with CRM, finance, HR, customer operations, that sort of thing. MuleSoft. Most of my network, I'm not gonna lie, is in MuleSoft, just because it's been around for so long. I remember sort of like 7-8 years ago, the golden egg was, if someone had Mule or MuleSoft on their CV. It is still in demand. They're not advertised that much. So when people say, "Oh, I don't see many kind of MuleSoft adverts," what's going on? They are out there. But a lot of them are kind of more on the contract side of things. You don't really see contractors advertised that much, which is an interesting one. But yeah, I don't know. MuleSoft's, it's always going to be there. But it's just the cost, right, guys? Like it's so expensive. And that's last quarter. That's a quarter before. It's been the same for about a year and a half, but it's such a good platform as long as you're using it to its full potential and full capability. And a lot of companies introduce it and they don't need it, or they're not utilizing it properly, and they kind of get a bit frustrated by it all. But to me, I think MuleSoft is the best integration platform if used to its full potential. But that's really in kind of highly, large scale, like large data sets, kind of high governance environments. But yeah, probably preaching to the choir here, but yeah, no, it's and Salesforce heavy environments as well. MuleSoft always follows suite with Salesforce, obviously when they got merged in 2020, 2021, 19, maybe around there. So you'll always kind of, the MuleSoft demand will follow suite with that. Consultancies as well, who are like Salesforce partners, they used to kind of go full pronged attack with MuleSoft like pre-sales, like, winning work, just MuleSoft work. That's changed quite a lot, where they'll send in kind of the heavy hitters with Salesforce and then pitch, MuleSoft as the integration platform of choice. Obviously, it's the same company, but that's the kind of angle that they're going in. So like the go-to-market with consultancies has changed slightly with that as well, which I find quite interesting, but I figured that would probably be the case anyway, to be honest. Outlook for this quarter, I know we're probably a month in now, but yeah, look, I don't see it changing like drastically, in all honesty, guys. Demand, this is quite an interesting one. Demand will remain strongest for senior engineers, technical and architects. I get a lot of people at kind of that junior to mid level who I wouldn't say they're panicking, that's probably a bit of a strong word, but who are kind of concerned with their like role because of AI. API architects and AI architects, I don't want to say they're the same thing, but they're so like interwoven at the moment. It's if they're building a team, and this is the same across the board, guys. Like even with like Java developers, .NET engineers, Python, Node.js, Golang, Rust, whatever you want to say. Like it's a lot of people now are replacing like the junior, probably more junior, less mid. The higher you go up the rank, the less kind of impact it is. But training kind of the leads and the architects to work with like your Claudes, your Copilots, and things like that, so they can do the work of the junior engineers. Now, that's why I'm seeing a lot of API juniors and mids becoming AI engineers, just to give them a bit more flexibility. So that is an interesting one at the moment. But yeah, I think the higher levels, like the leads and the architects, are always going to be there. I'm just really curious to know, like, and you guys probably are as well, if you are like a junior or a mid, what happens in 5 years' time? Do you know what I mean? So that's going to be an interesting one that I'll keep tabs on, but I'll keep you updated with that one. AI initiatives are increasing. That's a no-brainer. I've told you that. That's what I've noticed. Everyone seems to be wanting to do that at the moment. So clients are prioritizing people who can design solutions and architectural decisions. So this is quite an interesting one. So if you're like a senior, this is what I'm seeing. This is kind of what I saw last quarter as well, but this is what I'm seeing at the moment. So if you're like a senior engineer and then an architect, like senior integration engineer and an integration architect. So before, the roles were quite, set in stone. You're a senior engineer who's good at engineer. You're in the weeds. You're doing the engineering development. You're doing the APIs, and you understood the architecture elements, like how it kind of fits into the design layer, what looks good, what looks bad. And then the architect side of things, it was very much, you're not really too much in the weeds, the development. You've gone through that already. You're now sat at the design layer. But because you come from that background, you can speak to the engineers. You know what can be done, what can't be done, what the limitations are. You've been in the weeds. Now, what I'm seeing at the moment is that is becoming quite blurred at the moment. Now, senior engineers, there's a lot more emphasis on people who understand the architectural elements. That's always kind of been the case for the back burner, but it's even more so now. So people, if you're a senior engineer, probably 70% development or engineering, and then 30%, 25% architecture understanding. And then on the architecture side of things, it's 70% architecture with kind of 30% hands-on. So I don't want to say the lines have become a bit blurred, but there's higher expectations for an architect to be more hands-on and a senior engineer to be more on the design layer, if that makes sense. I'm sure you guys are seeing this as well, because all my interviews that I'm having of senior engineers, it's always more on the architecture side of things. I don't know if they're looking ahead and they kind of want to, can this person step up to be an architect? And then obviously the architect side of things, can we utilize this person not just do the design, but actually do like the development work as well? I am seeing that a lot more. You've probably seen solution designer role thrown around. I don't like solution designer. I think that's just a way for companies to pay less for a solution architect, but ultimately it is like a solution designer role is kind of what everyone's looking for at the moment, obviously with the different salary bands in terms of the expectation leaning on either side of the fence. So that's worth noting as well, guys. I think that's a pretty interesting one. So if you're an architect, try and stay hands-on with the tools. If you're an engineer, try and get your architect certifications and just have a bit more understanding and exposure, I guess, to the architectural elements, because that's going to make you really, really appealing. And I'm noticing that a lot more at the moment. It's all good, Vinay. Cheers, mate. Yeah, and the last point, documentation, mapping, code generation, troubleshooting, they'd be accelerated by AI assistance. That's kind of what I was saying. That's where the kind of junior to mid-level is coming in, that, those guys are kind of being squeezed a little bit. I won't go too much into this one. I'll give you this is not really relevant to this. This just like, if I've got 6 points here, if I was to just kind of summarize what I've said in terms of like across that. So hiring remains healthy, but it's more targeted. Azure integration is seeing the strongest momentum. I would agree with that. Integration architects are still one of the hardest skill sets to hire for, and they are in demand, which is obviously a good sign that, things are happening in terms of the build and the developers coming in. MuleSoft is still stable. More emphasis on the architecture and governance and like pure development. Boomi remains strong in the mid-market, and I think that that's going to be the biggest growth one with Azure integration. And AI is increasing demand for integration engineers. Like I said, guys, I generally think that we're in a really good spot here, because companies need us. AI is only as good as the API landscape. I cannot emphasize that enough, and everyone is agreeing with that. And you had so many companies who brought in CIOs and stuff who are more operational focused than technical focused. The operational guys were just looking at the cost. They wanted to have the AI badge next to their CIO title saying, I've put this in. They're the ones now that are backtracking and have to redoing it all again. The technical CIOs that came in are the ones who kind of step back. All right, let's look at the architectural frameworks, the concepts. Is it AI ready? Is the API landscape all sorted? Those are now the guys that are leapfrogging over. And those are the guys that I deal with. I don't deal with like, we're cutting costs. I deal with the people who want the best outcome for the business. Yeah, all good. It's all right, Ken. Cheers, mate. But yeah, I'll try and, sorry, I realize we've gone over here. I'll zip through these last ones. Hopefully this has been really insightful, guys. Like, I do appreciate your time. Technical bar does continue to rise, just all about adapting, guys. Support alongside integration, CI/CD pipeline, API design, cloud knowledge as well. That's an important one. Operational experience matters as well. So if it's done up and running, production support, tickets, incident management, platform reliability, those sort of things, and depth over keywords, like that kind of leans into the architectural side of thing as well. Like, delivering the real outcomes, like what's the problem we're fixing from an architectural, validating the architectural choices and developing like against them. Like it has to be in sync. And people will do that. Like architects want to make sure that the people that they're hiring more at the engineering level are going to, cooperate with the designs that they've done. So this is more for the manager's side of things, but I guess it's good for you guys to look at this. So, engineering, architectural thinking, like I mentioned again, it's difficult to find in one role. Platform strategy. This is interesting. A lot of companies are running like guinea pig projects at the moment. Instead of going like full beans, being like, oh, we want to implement this or implement that, or we want to do an overhaul, or we want to just build these API layers. A lot of them are kind of hiring contractors for like mini projects. So like in a kind of corner of the business, they'll play around with like, Azure, Boomi, Workato in a kind of mini project just to see how it goes and how it adapts before they kind of go full pelt in it. Kind of like a little test lab, which I quite like. I'm helping companies kind of with consultants sort of play around with that at the moment with little teams. So that's quite interesting at the moment. So whenever you see kind of like the smaller, like 3-month contracts, that's probably what it is, in all honesty, especially with the larger enterprise companies where it's not really going to impact too much. They kind of like the lesser kind of critical aspects. But yeah, strongest candidates can clearly articulate what architectural decisions were made, how incidents were resolved, and improve what outcomes will be delivered. So yeah, I think to summarize, guys, the priority shifted from connect our systems to prepare our integration landscape so AI can securely consume enterprise data. I'll send this round to you guys as well. This is perm and contract day rates. This is probably the slide that you're most concerned about. I can send this round to you guys if you just want to fire me like an email to my chris.lane@precisionsourcing.com.au. I can give this to you. I think it's really valuable to look at, but probably no surprises there. COVID boom, it's gone down. There's been no real shift in too much from last quarter. So this was kind of lift and shift from my quarterly report last quarter. But I'll send that to you guys as well. But look, as you can see, like the Azure integration is the top one. Supply, it's all about supply and demand, really. Like Azure integration, for example, they command the highest because supply is low, demand is high. That's just the nature of the beast. But I'll send this round to you guys if you want. I'm sure you can read. But I'll send that through if you just want to ping me a quick email. But yeah, move quickly. There's a lot of competition, guys. I'm happy to kind of run through if you want me to look at like your CV. Obviously not on here because everyone will probably want to like chat in some capacity. But if you want to share your CV to me privately and I can have a look at it, I can more than happy to help you out. I do this day in, day out, guys. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it, guys. I hope that's been helpful. Like I said, I'm not a technical guy, but I hope that was as technical as a recruiter can be. But I don't know if anyone's got any, kind of quick questions or anything that they want to fire in. Thanks, Daniela. All good. Yeah. See,
Chris, I think I have one quick question.
yeah, mate.
Hey, mate. Chris, I think we talked about that the MuleSoft, I think, having the higher cost, and we are saying that there might be the organization inclining towards the migration of the platform.
Yeah.
I think at the same time we are seeing the AI shift as well, right?
Yeah.
So MuleSoft is offering some AI capabilities as well to
Yeah, like
support.
Fabric. Yeah.
Agent Fabric.
Yeah.
That was coming to.
Yeah.
There's the Agent Fabric. So are you seeing those demands coming in the market asking about Agent Fabric? It's just
Yeah. No. That's a good question. I am. Whenever I look at the market, I always look at like your KPMGs, your Deloittes, and things like that, because they usually want to be. They're in real fierce competition at the top. So I work with all of them. So there's a lot of fierce competition. A lot of them are hiring like are integrating their integration practice with their AI practice. And like, for example, I've just hired someone who's a partner at KPMG. So he's running AI with Fabric with MuleSoft. That's a specific capability. Now I look at that and think Deloitte's going to follow suite now. Accenture's going to follow suite. I know IBM are about to follow suite because I'm working on some stuff with them. So your point, yeah, MuleSoft had to adapt to the AI. It needed another, kind of point in that thing. I think Fabric was the one. So those guys are hiring. So yes, I do agree with you there. Like Fabric, I think will be a new thing. But I guess, like I said, more focused on people who have the MuleSoft heavy landscape, who want to kind of plug in that Fabric, will probably be where it is, as opposed to like maybe a new implementation. I could be wrong. But that's all I'm saying. But yeah, that was a good question, mate. But yeah, so basically the heavy hitters, the tier ones, are pushing that, which is usually a good sign that it's going to filter into the rest of the market. That makes sense, right?
I think at the same time, seeing that because of the high cost of MuleSoft, the organization looking at the other options as well. You talked about the Azure Integration Services and just trying to understand that the role, because Azure Integration Services might have the different level of tech requirements. It might be the API apps, web apps, or logic apps, or function apps or APIs. What specifically do you see in a senior integration role they are looking for as someone to work in the Azure Integration Services? What tech stack they look for?
What are you saying? If they've got like MuleSoft already and they want to build Azure APIs on top of that, is that what you're saying? Or just
No, irrespective of MuleSoft, if let's say if someone is looking for a Azure Integration Service
Oh
engineer, it's a vast term.
Look, when it started, people just wanted to have full stack engineers and thought they could use their web service integration to start doing all the middleware. That I don't think that's a thing anymore. I think they just kind of use that as an easy route. Like, yes, you can upskill a full stack engineer to doing it as long as you got, the RESTful APIs, you can hook the toolings onto it. A lot of companies did that. Deloitte did that a while ago, but I think now Logic Apps, Service Bus, and Azure Functions are probably the key ones. Those three, I would say. Logic Apps, number one, for sure. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Okay. I'm seeing in the organization, the Logic Apps are not giving the capabilities same as the MuleSoft or Boomi. How mature the MuleSoft, Boomi, or Workatos are, because Logic App is the similar tools as the iPaaS, any iPaaS solution.
Yeah.
But seeing, as you said, the Azure function or web apps, they are more code based. You have to heavily write the code
Yeah.
using your functionality, give you more space of flexibility to write the APIs as per your requirement. It gives us more flexibility.
Yeah. No, it's insightful. Like I said, I'm not a technical guy, but that does make sense. Yeah. Any good integration engineer, in my eyes, will understand solid development concepts and fundamentals. I think some of the best integration engineers that I've worked with have come from a development background, and then they've kind of just zoned in more on like the middleware. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. That's how I got into MuleSoft anyway. I started with Java engineers, and then Java engineers went into RESTful API, and then RESTful API went into MuleSoft, and then I just did MuleSoft. So that was my transition. Yeah. I don't know if anyone's got any other questions. I'm mindful of the time here, but if anyone wants to send me any questions via email, I'm more than happy to answer. Like I do generally think we're in a really good spot here, guys, and hopefully that's been insightful. But it's my first one. Feedback makes you better or better. If there was something you didn't like, then please let me know. Because this is like the first one, so you were kind of a bit of a canary down the mine, so I do appreciate that.
Hey Chris, Vikram here from Auckland.
Hey man.
So firstly, it's definitely a very helpful session. So thanks for this,
That's
putting
right.
all these slides together. I mean, it doesn't sound like it's your first one.
Oh,
so really
thanks.
good one. So my question is probably the simplest one. So now that we are almost coming to the end of the year, what do you feel like will be the ask for more people? Like, will companies slow down and start again, or do you think it's more related to the projects that they want to pick up right now? In Australia, at least,
Yeah. Look, timing is always had a set pattern. It's all based around the financial year and Christmas. Those are kind of the two, nuances where it can go up and down. Like the lead up to the financial year, it was a lot about strategy, headcount, what we're going to do, what we can and can't do. Then when the budget kicks in June, the headcount's in order. That's when you see the kind of uptake. Usually there's like a month lag because people aren't as organized as they should be. Like the financial year isn't like, this is the day. It usually kind of falls in, and they, until they got the money in the back pocket, they don't want to pull the trigger. And then the next few months will increase. And then naturally, like November, December, January are the traditional like quiet months. So like you don't really see too much hiring, more because a lot of the senior partners are off, the decision makers. When people are being onboarded, do you want to onboard someone usually around Christmas when no one's in and work is a bit airy-fairy, in consultancies, the end users aren't getting back to you. It's not a great experience. So there's kind of like, now is the time where it will start picking up. And I'm noticing that now. And then probably November time is when it will dip down. And then end of January, early February is then it will kick back up. And then it will go down in just before financial year and then back up after financial year. So it's the same cycle. Unless something drastic happens, like we, COVID or, economic crash. Those are, out of our control. Those are the only things that are really going to affect that cycle. But if everything was normal, that would just be the traditional cycle, always.
Thank you for sharing. And the companies and the clients you've been working with to help build their teams, do you feel that they've actually indicated that they're going to be slowing down because of other economic factors, or as in, they are focusing more on the AI side of things because that's more expensive than hiring us. So are they like investing more in their projects and money to those sort of area rather than integration? I mean, have you come across people like that?
Like I said, mate, like the AI and integration are so entwined at the moment. It's not really impacting that much. Like you said, you need a solid API landscape to do AIs. People are realizing that. Whether they hire them in unison, they are saying that. So, which is why I'm saying we're in a good spot, because yes, a lot of the focus is on AI at the moment. It's across everything, but I generally think the integration market, it is one of the more safer industries, touch wood, than developers. Do you know what I mean? Because like AI needs to work with an API landscape, whereas if you're like just a classic like Java engineer or developer or whatnot, those are the people that are getting affected, because like Claude AI can just punch out the same what they're doing. You're creating the arena and the playing field for AI to operate. So like that's so important. Like, yeah. So I think you'll be all right, Vikram.
No, it's good to know. It's good to know. Well, I mean, in any case, any other questions, I'll definitely send as an email. But thank you for the session.
No, thanks, mate. Well, I think if that's it from everyone, just send me an email or give me a call like this afternoon. Happy to answer any questions, guys. But I hope that's been insightful, and I'm looking forward to what this year brings. I think it's going to be a good one.